Right of the pack are these 5 brave souls. We're under 30 kilometers to go, and you can see just how much of that gap has been knocked back at the moment. It's time for a last feed and then to get on with it. We're looking at Kruijswijk, who's carrying an awful lot of gauze on his body. One of those that went down.
Yeah, he's one that fractured his elbow, actually, so it's not just superficial wounds. For those of you joining us, so many people, of course, with broken bones after yesterday's stage, some of them continuing, and amongst those is Stephen Kruijswijk and his teammate Rick Flens, who broke a finger as well. So discussions going on at the front here. We've got another FDJ rider. Is that, I think that's the Brazilian also no, I'm wrong, and that's Mori, I think.
Just less than 20 kilometers to go. 2 minutes and 37 is the time gap. And there is the pack. They've done a good job, incidentally, of pacing back on, or at least closing the gap on the descent. A big long one that extended over 18 kilometers. We're now on the flatlands and the run for home. This run in over 22 kilometers long, and it's going to be hard for the breakaway to stay away now. And of course, it's the usual suspects who are up towards the front looking after Cadel Evans. BMC doing a fantastic job of doing exactly that. They won't be thinking about the stage win, but just making sure that there's no splits, of which we've seen plenty today. Likewise, Quintana's Movistar boys with the big green M on the back of their navy blue. But here comes Sky, and they have got Ben Swift involved. Bernie Eisel took a tumble and caused a partial split in the peloton not that long ago. But right now, it looks like the sprint teams are getting themselves in order. Cannondale in the green, it'll be for Viviani. Francis de Jeur, Nasser Bouhanni in the blue. Of course, you'll have some individuals like Apollino for AG2 à la Mondiale, who's up here as well. Ben Swift for Team Sky. Kiki's managed to get himself back on. Mezgets for Team Giant Shimano will certainly be at the business end. Tyler Ferrara's had his problems. A puncture. He took a rear wheel from one of his teammates. He'd been distanced on the climb, but he's got back on as well. There are many sprint options up for grabs here, Dan, and it's the usual suspects, it seems.
Yeah, Kiki as well, and you can see 3 yellow dots on the lower part of the peloton there, or the left-hand side of the peloton, moving Kiki up. He was distanced a little over the top of the 4th category climb, and of course with the speeds on the descent, it's taken him a while to make his way first back to the peloton. Now he's got a couple of teammates gradually bringing him up towards the front. It's a very inconsistent sprinter, is Kiki. I've said that a couple of times before already over the last few days, but you never know of him. If he's on his day, if he gets his positioning right, he could well win the stage. We've got, as you said, Carlton, a good few favourites to fight it out at the finish. And yeah, I managed to not miss them going through the 20Ks to go ban of the peloton. I had my timer going.
Well, 2 minutes and 15, I think they've caught back up with you, Dan. Who will it be that catches the fast men today? I think it is going to be a big shakeout, but Alessandro Patacchi, we mentioned him for Omega Pharma Quickstep. It's a safe-ish run in. I think it might well be too busy for him. He's now declared himself not a great fan of sprinting within the bunch. In fact, he can get a bit tetchy in situations such as that. He's mainly a lead-out man these days, but don't be surprised if Omega Pharma Quickstep's Patacchi is a feature at the end. Michael Matthews might give it a good old punt to see if he can just put a few more seconds into some of his rivals. He is the man wearing the pink jersey, but I think he's thinking the long game. If he can finish with the same numbers, he's got an advantage at the moment of 20-odd seconds over the chasers, and I think that'll be enough for him to be wearing the pink jersey tomorrow, but we expect it to be off his shoulders when we get to Monte Copiolo tomorrow, the first of our real proper climbing tests. Talking about proper, the pace here is absolutely that, and the gap to the breakaway, 16 minutes, it's still a healthy one, you know.
16 minutes?
16 kilometres, I beg your pardon, with 2 minutes or so.
That is a healthy lead.
Yes, misguiding everybody there, apologies. 13.3 kilometres to go, 1 minute and 41 now is the gap. It's still touch and go, you know. If these guys start getting themselves into a little bit of a conundrum, and in other words, asking questions as to who is going to be helping the chase down, it might well be they ease off, and if they do that, there's a danger that the breakaway will make it.
Yeah, and it needs them to keep pressing on the front. If they start to get fatigued, because they've been doing a very hard chase for quite a number of kilometres now, if a couple of them drop off, there's only 4 or 5 of them left on the front, that will make it more difficult. But I have noticed that Lotto Belisol in red, the Belgian team, have also put a rider on the front of the bunch, and meanwhile there's a little bit of activity also in our breakaway.
It's a lovely backdrop here, but it is as per theatre down in the valleys. And we are running towards the line, and we're doing it at quite a pace. 12.6 kilometres to go. And it's time to sort yourselves out, I guess. This is a man who's been on the deck, Bernie Eisel. They could have done with him today to tee up the likes of Edvald Boasson-Hagen and, of course, Ben Swift, who will be at the sharp end. And it's going to be about the sprinters when we get into town. And look at the pace we've already got. 12.4 kilometres to go, and still a minute and a half with the breakaway boys. Well, there are faster
7, maybe even 8 riders rolling through and off. They'll be doing 55 to 60 k's per hour all the way in now, and they have been doing that for quite some time. Luckily for everybody, it's the first stage, which, dare I say it too early, looks like it's going to finish on dry roads. 12 k's to go, no sign of rain in the air at the moment, completely dry here on the finish line, and they'll need that. There's a couple of tricky corners in the last couple of k's, which we will talk you through as they come towards it in a few moments' time.
Just less than 12 kilometres to go, a minute and a half, just shy of that as we speak, and it's destination Foligno. And it's the lower part of town as well, I can tell you that much. Bohème, Haas, Tarot, Chalapud and Lampreys also involved here with Anaconda. Goodness me, there's a lot of wounds that are being carried today, and this is, well, part of the chase back on for some. This is Alfacci you're looking at the moment for Trek Factory Racing. He took a tumble at a roundabout that also affected, I'm afraid to say, Eisel. For Sky have got Boasson-Hagen, will be teeing up Ben Swift. Viviani has got a whole raft of lead-out men who will work for him. Mezgec, I beg your pardon, for Giant Shimano will be there. Likewise will be Nasser Bouhanni. So Mezgec, Viviani, Bouhanni, Swift. Anyone else? Who's your pick?
Kiki, he could well be up there. There's so many riders that you can choose from today. I think Bouhanni and Viviani so far have shown they're on one of the top levels of the sprinters. Swift, of course, did very, very well in Dublin through positioning. He's got a strong lead out, has Ben Swift, if he's feeling good and well recovered from his crash yesterday. Boasson-Hagen putting him into the perfect position on the run into Dublin, and you know, it was only Kittel who managed to just squeeze past Swifty on the line, and it was excruciating for the British rider. But he's also going for the points jersey, so even if he's not up there right for the win, he'll want to try and take points today, and that's certainly what team manager and sports director Rod Ellingworth said earlier today. So they'll be really doing their best to put him into the best position possible, and I guess it's about the right time now to talk you through what they've got to deal with over the last kilometres. With 7 k's to go exactly, they'll take a 90-degree just under left, followed very quickly by a 90-degree right. They'll then follow the main road, a few twists and turns, but nothing too much to talk about. But it's with around about 1.4 k's to go. They do another 90-degree to the right, you know, even a more acute angle to the left after that, and then a final left-hand turn with 1k to go. It then goes gradually around to the right, and then with 350 to go, just in vision of our commentary box, they do this gradual swing around to the right. It's a long one. By the time they come here, it'll be around about 250 metres to go, and I think the person second or third around that corner will go on to win today's stage. You can see there's some splits going on in that front group at the moment. 3 just prize themselves away, and in fact there's a few attacks going on, and to me Nathan Haas and Bjorn Turo there, they have been the strongest riders in this breakaway so far, but they can't afford to start mucking about at the moment. It's still touch and go for them. 1 minute and 15 seconds inside that last 10 k's. They've got to press on. They've got to work well together to have any chance of stage victory today.
Well, maybe 5 was too many and 3 is just right, but unfortunately the thing you need at the moment is possibly a motorcycle if you're going to beat these guys, because mind you, I'm saying that, and they're starting to look at each other and they're talking about who is going to take over chase down duties right now, and they can't afford to do this too much.
Well, what has happened here, this is a little drag which wasn't really on our race profile, but it's nothing really to these professional riders, but because they've been riding such high speeds for so long, those guys from the teams of Cannondale, FDJ, Giant Shimano and the other sprint trained Lotto Bella. So as soon as you hit a drag like this, it just completely saps your legs, and you'll find that a lot of them have probably gone back through the peloton because they aren't able to sustain the power or the speed up there. And so this is a crucial point. If they don't regather themselves with other teammates at the front right now, then these guys at the front have got a great chance again.
So it's a long old straight one, and then it gets a little bit busy, more than that I guess you might say, with around 1.4 kilometres to go. A few nasty turns for them to deal with, but from the Flamme Rouge it's all about going for it with a gentle right-hander, a series of them, as the road just gently sort of curves round. It's got some straight edges to it, so that the right-handers sort of go right and then respite right and right again. But it's very, very gentle, so it'll be at very high pace. The pace that these guys are sustaining is impressive. They've got just about a minute with 8.5 to go, and it's not over just yet, but they're losing manpower as we speak. Anacona looks the least lively of them all, I'm afraid. Chalaput also looks like he's been caught out. The Green of Europe car and Thoreau still there. Nathan Haas for Garmin Sharp looks the freshest of all of them, and Bowen for Bardiani, and they still have a chance. It's 52 seconds. The ramp really has sapped the strength of the fast men. They weren't expecting it, and I think they've possibly put in a bit too much, just a bit too late. A tumble at a roundabout that also affected, I'm afraid to say, Eisel for Sky. Sky have got Bosenhagen, will be teeing up Ben Swift. Viviani has got a whole raft of lead-out men who will work for him. Mezgets, I beg your pardon, for Giant Shimano will be there. Likewise will be Nasser Bouhanni. So Mezgets, Viviani, Bouhanni, Swift. Anyone else? Who's your pick?
Kiki, he could well be up there. There's so many riders that you can choose from today. I think Bouhanni and Viviani so far have shown they're on one of the top levels of the sprinters. Swift, of course, did very, very well in Dublin through positioning. He's got a strong lead out, has Ben Swift, if he's feeling good and well recovered from his crash yesterday. Bosenhagen putting him into the perfect position on the run into Dublin, and you know, it was only Kittel who managed to just squeeze past Swifty on the line, and it was excruciating for the British rider. But he's also going for the points jersey, so even if he's not up there right for the win, he'll want to try and take points today, and that's certainly what team manager and sports director Rod Ellingworth said earlier today. So they'll be really doing their best to put him into the best position possible, and I guess it's about the right time now to talk you through what they've got to deal with over the last kilometres. With 7Ks to go exactly, they'll take a 90-degree just under left, followed very quickly by a 90-degree right. They'll then follow the main road, a few twists and turns, but nothing too much to talk about. But it's with around about 1.4 Ks to go. They do another 90-degree to the right, you know, even more acute angle to the left after that, and then a final left-hand turn with 1K to go. It then goes gradually around to the right, and then with 350 to go, just in vision of our commentary box, they do this gradual swing around to the right. It's a long one. By the time they come here, it'll be around about 250 metres to go, and I think the person second or third around that corner will go on to win today's stage. You can see there's some splits going on in that front group at the moment. Three just prize themselves away, and in fact there's a few attacks going on, and to me Nathan Haas and Bjorn Thureau there, they have been the strongest riders in this breakaway so far, but they can't afford to start mucking about at the moment. It's still touch and go for them. 1 minute and 15 seconds inside that last 10Ks. They've got to press on. They've got to work well together to have any chance of stage victory today. Well,
maybe 5 was too many and 3 is just right, but unfortunately the thing you need at the moment is possibly a motorcycle if you're going to beat these guys, because mind you, I'm saying that, and they're starting to look at each other and they're talking about who is going to take over chase down duties right now, and they can't afford to do this too much.
Well, what has happened here, this is a little drag which wasn't really on our race profile, but it's nothing really to these professional riders, but because they've been riding such high speeds for so long, those guys from the teams of Cannondale, FDJ, Giant Shimano and the other sprint trained Lotto Bella. So as soon as you hit a drag like this, it just completely saps your legs, and you'll find that a lot of them have probably gone back through the peloton because they aren't able to sustain the power or the speed up there. And so this is a crucial point. If they don't regather themselves with other teammates at the front right now, then these guys at the front have got a great chance again.
So it's a long old straight one, and then it gets a little bit busy, more than that I guess you might say, with around 1.4 kilometres to go. A few nasty turns for them to deal with, but from the Flamme Rouge it's all about going going for it with a gentle right-hander, a series of them, as the road just gently sort of curves round. It's got some straight edges to it, so the right-handers sort of go right and then respite right and right again. But it's very, very gentle, so it'll be a very high pace. The pace that these guys are sustaining is impressive. They've got just about a minute with 8.5 to go, and it's not over just yet, but they're losing manpower as we speak. Anacona looks the least lively of them all, I'm afraid. Chalaput also looks like he's been caught out. The Green of Europe car and Thoreau still there. Nathan Haas for Garmin Sharp looks the freshest of all of them, and Bowen for Bardiani, and they still have a chance. It's 52 seconds. The ramp really has sapped the strength of the fast men. They weren't expecting it, and I think they've possibly put in a bit too much, just a bit too late on. Now up front, we've had so much damage in this Giro, let's hope there's no more. It does get technical, don't forget. It's about 1,400 metres to go, so they've got 1k before it gets really nasty, and then it's safe once again in the run for the line.
Well, I can't quite understand this route that they're going in if they've not changed it. 2.4 k's to go. It's supposed to be straight from this point in towards the finish, as we see the doctors attending to Ventoso on the right-hand side of your screen. Luke Durbridge on the left doing a sterling job yet again for Orica Green Edge. We can see 3 riders from Giant Shimano. The back rider from them is Mezet, the sprinter that they'll be dealing with today. Sky right up there towards the front as well. Micah in the mix, not for the sprint, just to stay safe. And I hope we rejoin the action at the front very, very soon.
Back up front, and there is Ferrari. He's also got involved here. He's going to have to do it on his own. Likewise is going to be Kiki. Look at Giant working for Mezgets, and look at Bohani's boys. And Bohani's absolutely locked on at the moment, like a laser-guided missile. How's he going to do? And there comes the red jersey of being worn at the moment by Viviani. 1,600 metres to go. Now here come the turns down.
Yeah, here come the turns, and we speculated about Alessandro Patacchi, the 40-year-old sprinter for Omega Pharma Quickstep. He's right up there from the front, banging shoulders with the Orica Green Edge rider to get onto the wheel of Buani. We could well see Patacchi sprinting today as well. There's the first of the turns, the right-hander. Now comes the crucial point. 2 left-handers in very, very quick succession before they start their final run in towards the line.
Here comes the big charge, and it's Nizzolo with Hondo helping him out as well. They drift over to the right-hand side of the road, and the reason is they're going to take a left. A very quick order, they're going to take a second left, and then the Flamme Rouge will beckon, and it's all about the right-handers along the way from now on in. You may as well just turn on the taps, because it's almost uncomplex, I think you might say, along the way. There's that second one, and here we go. This is your run in right now. We're taking a long view, and behind he's trying to get himself into place. Duque and Avila are also involved here, and he's going to try and get on the coattails of Buhani's boys in the blue. Big check over the shoulder. They're trying to flatten out the road. They're working for Mezgets. He's tucked in a decent position. There's Viviani in the red jersey. He's in a good spot right now, but he's got to find it. And Swift's found some space as well.
Swift just on the wheel of the red jersey there. The Cannondale rider swings off. The last of his lead out done. Mezec finds himself, in my opinion, too close to the front. Second wheel now. Buhani on his wheel. Nizzolo after that. Matthews in 5th.
Matthews is in an amazing position for this one. He's going to ride in behind Patacchi by the looks of things. Swift's also not to be discounted at the moment, but Mezgets goes out, and Matthews drifts over towards the side of the road. Nizzolo's also in the frame. Here comes Mezgets, and here comes Buhani right to the line. Oh, and I think Buhani has got his second stage win of this Giro d'Italia. Oh, it takes a strong man, and he is exactly that. What about that?
Another fantastic sprint from the Frenchman. A disappointed Nizzolo from Track Factory Racing in second. Good sprint from Mezec in 3rd place. Michael Matthews in that pink jersey rolled across the line in 4th.
Here's your results. Buhani takes it ahead of Nizzolo for Trek Factory Racing. Mezgets from Giant just couldn't match the credentials of Kittel. Michael Matthews, chapeau, sir. What about that? Beating Ferrari at the line, who also got involved and had to do it alone. Buhani into red then, taking it off the back of Viviani. Here's your overall standings. Michael Matthews missing out on line bonuses today, but holds an advantage over Cadel Evans and Rigoberto Urán. That's how they stand overall.
It was a bit different to what it looked like on the paper, actually. So we did a bit of recon this morning on the course, but yeah, it was a little bit more technical than we originally thought. So we just tried to be in the front of the bunch at about 5k to go, and then from then on it was just try and stay at the front as long as possible. And yeah, all the boys did a great job. Luke Durbridge was again amazing today, and Mitch Doco was great too, and yeah, they put me in the right position in the final, but just didn't quite have the legs after yesterday to try and get over Buani.
Hagen to come back towards the front. There we go, Tinkoff Saxo still up there. Rafael Majka in the white jersey, and it's AG2R now who have taken over the pace setting. They'll of course want to get Pozzovivo into the best position possible, and the gap's continuing to tumble. They've still got a further 3 kilometres before they get to the top of this climb. I think they need at least 2 minutes really, those breakaway riders, if they're going to have a chance of stage victory. They've got that long descent and a double kick up towards the finish here, and the way the peloton's riding, it's looking at the moment kind of less and less likely. But as you've already said, Carlton, if anyone can do it, it seems like Arredondo can.
Yeah, I think so. Ivan Basso also part of this group. Pozzovivo likewise. There is the 16-second gap that we're talking. That's from the chasers, incidentally, not from the peloton. That's 2 minutes and 23 down. But it does, the chasers include Edvald Boasson-Hagen. Now, you might be surprised on a mountains day for us to talk about him. However, he is a fantastic descender, and the final test today, if he gets over this peak, and they're going to crest very shortly, 4Ks he's got, in fact 3.5 as we speak. It means that Edvald, with the respite zones on the last 2 climbs of today, can regather himself. And indeed, there are areas where his punchy nature and that pace that he's got really can pay dividends, not least at the end. So if he stays in touch, it might be glory for him. But there are some proper climbers, and we're looking at them right now. Pirazzi, there he goes out of your screen. Cataneo has got back on. Arredondo surely has to be the favourite out of these 3, but I expected him to put a bit more into the likes of Edvald Boasson-Hagen from this group than 16 seconds. That seems modest. Beautifully, despite the fact that he took a great hit on his left side, and clearly he's got some strapping going on underneath as well. He hasn't just swollen up on one side. Well, he probably has, but it's being dealt with. 38 kilometres to go. Now they'll peak at 35.6, so they've got 2.4. Do you mind taking the motorcycle away? Is the wave off? I think that's how we'll call it politely, shall we, from Kemener. But quite right, just reminding the motorcycle to give him a bit of room. Only 3 metres wide this. There's not much room to get round if you do want to go on the attack.
Only 12 seconds to the pairing of Boasson-Hagen and Quintero from those front 3 at the moment. So we might see a group of 5 forming at that point fairly soon, which would be great for them on the descent. And Boasson-Hagen, I think, as you said, Carlton, even if he doesn't make the junction by the top of this climb, I think he'll descend like a stone and probably make it back up to them then.
I think he's the danger man for those up front who are clearly better climbers, because the final climb is going to play into his hands. And there we are within sight. They're going to come over the peak here down altogether, because the easier part of this difficult test of the day, the pointy end, if you like, has just been dealt with. 14 kilometres, and suddenly they respond. They know their own teams on the radio saying, go, go, go. You've got to put some space between you and Edvald Boasson-Hagen, because he descends, as you said, down like a stone. He's a brilliant descender, and the last couple of peaks are not going to hurt him that badly.
Well, he's doing the right thing, Edvald, by doing an even pace all the way up. And Pirazzi, as we've seen so many times in the past, loves a little acceleration. But what happens then is that they end up just slowing down slightly afterwards. They look at each other, and that will play into his hands, I think. You can see him on your screen now, Edvald Boasson-Hagen, former national champion of Norway on more than one occasion. And he'll have the guys in his sight at the front there, and that will give him a lot of morale.
Certainly will. Minute 41 only back to Quintana, Evans, Uran, Basso and the boys, and others with hopes of doing something today. In fact, some of them might be allowed to, as the gaps are quite significant due to the accidents we've had at the top of this Giro. 37.8 kilometres to go. Edvald Boasson-Hagen is busy chasing on, and this is a fantastic gutsy performance from a big man with pace who shouldn't really be functioning very well when it comes to high mountains. We're not at the Alpine peaks yet. However, today was badged up as a day for climbers. Eddie Boss is very much part of proceedings on Norway National Day. He's got 17.6 kilometres of descent to get back to these guys. He's not going to need all of that. In fact, he'll be there within short order, maybe even before they crest. We'll see. 37.7. They reach the top in 2K's time, and then it is downhill for 17.6 before that. double kick ending with respite zones, don't forget, which will play into the hand of the great Norwegian for Sky, and this is why we're seeing this.
Wow, Arredondo goes on the attack, but Spirazzi very quick to react. They love to have a change of pace to these climbs, but has finally put Kemener into difficulty from Europcar. He was the guy that was telling the motorbike to go up the road, not give these riders so much shelter, and I think he's cracked Spirazzi as well. He was quick to respond, but he hasn't managed to get up to the wheel of the diminutive climber Arredondo, who sets off in lone pursuit of the King of the Mountains here at the top, but also in pursuit of stage victory.
Pozzovivo and AG2 alla Mondiale there, so is Cadel Evans, so is Quintana, of course. Basso, terrific that he is very much involved in the pointy end of those from the main bunch. There are riders now just spread all across this mountain. We knew there would be. Just look at this. It is a very narrow place to be. And, well, I guess you've got to be small to thread the needle, as it were. And, well, Arredondo is exactly that, but unfortunately for him, he's on his own. He's got 37.3 kilometres to go. Just having a look behind it is Spirazzi, and I think Kemener has been caught by Edvald Bosenhagen. So on the descent, it's going to be a very select group from a group that went off very early today after a number of skirmishes. 10 riders made the break. Right now, we are very much whittled down, and the pack is approaching.
Yeah, scattered all across the road there, right in the distance. You can still see Edvald Bosenhagen with his companion really there, Quintero, the other Colombian from the Colombia team. Arredondo continues in pursuit on his own. Looks like he's just fading slightly after that attack. He really went into the red then, but he's put a gap between himself and the rest of that breakaway. We said right from the start of the stage when we saw the composition of this break that he was the rider to watch, both in terms of the King of the Mountains competition and also for the stage win, and thus it's proved so far. He's looking on great form. First year in the World Tour. He's been on the Colombian circuit for a number of years and took a great stage victory in the Tour de San Luis at the start of the year in January, ahead of Quintana himself, although he did kind of gift the stage to him. So 1 minute and 34 seconds, as you can see, is the gap that he holds over these guys, and great job by AG2R to whittle the group down and bring that guy back. In the background there you can see Ryder Hedgedale still hanging on to that group, so he's obviously feeling pretty good as well.
Yes, indeed. The great Canadian winner, of course, of the Giro d'Italia in 2012. Pierre Roland, also part of that group, much maligned, I guess, by us over the last couple of days, mainly out of disappointment, incidentally. We just hoped for an awful lot more from him. But it's a Roland kind of day, this. I wouldn't be surprised to see him going on the attack for Europcar now that Kemener has started to fade. He's certainly kept himself at the business end on what has been a testing climb, and there is the big form of the man from Europcar. We'll see how he goes. A minute and 25 is the gap now back to these guys from Arredondo, with other intermediate riders from that breakaway that has animated the day so far, also very much involved. You see Cadel Evans also very much a feature, and Rafa Majka wearing that young rider's white jersey on behalf of Michael Matthews. I imagine it's going to be Majka's by right at the end of today, because Michael unfortunately has been found out today. It's just too much of a climber's day, which is not his specialism at all. Dig deep, go for it, and that's what Arredondo's doing right now. He's, I think, would like company and then just try and hope that there's a focused enough series of climbs within the two peaks that make up the end of the day for him to have that advantage which he's seeking.
What a ride by Viamo here on the front for AG2R. He's been there for the last 2 or 3 kilometres. He's whittled that group down to around about 20 strong. In the background you can see Nicholas Roach just starting to struggle slightly. Not a surprise there. Kelderman doing a great job for Belkin. He's in there still. Uran a little bit further back than perhaps I might expect. You can see him on the wheel of Kieselowski there, who is behind Ivan Basso. So pretty much the favourites that we were expecting to be at the front are still here at the moment. No major surprises so far, but also really no moves from the major players. The young rider from Astana, just in front of him, there's Quintana, whose team Movistar did a lot of the work on the lead up to this climb. Uran makes his way up to the wheel of his fellow Colombian, so he is looking pretty good as well, and it's the usual suspects that we're seeing there in that group.
Wilco Kelderman was a man that we discussed at the top of the show, or maybe just before we came to air, so apologies for that. But the man from Belkin is very much there, and good to see Wilco making a name for himself today. I think it may well be he's got some great belief that he can go on to take this. He's got some work to do, though, however, mainly because Arredondo is looking fantastic. The trouble for Arredondo is that this is not the finish. There's 35.4 kilometres to go, and there are some climbs, but they're not as testy as perhaps he would have liked, Dan.
Well, we're getting in news that it's 40 seconds the gap between Arredondo, who's about to crest this climb in 75 metres, back to Perazzi. That was a few moments ago. I'll do an official time as he goes over the cross, over the top.
Here we go. Start your clocks now. 35.2 kilometres to go, and here is Perazzi, and we have that clock rolling for you, and you'll find out what the gap is back to him, then to Kamener, but crucially back as well to Edvald Bosenhagen, who surely must have suffered. I haven't got pictures of him because he's shrouded by trees at the moment, and we're not allowed too many vehicles down on the ground level, as you can see, due to the narrowness of the course. When they come over the peak, by the way, it does generally tend to just widen ever so slightly on the descent. There is catch netting, incidentally, in case they get it wrong on some of the corners, because we didn't know whether we were going to have rain today, so some of that has been built in, familiar to skiers. It was about 38 seconds, wasn't it, Dan?
It was something like that, yeah, for actually just going over the top there. And yeah, 38 seconds, and then back to Kamener, 48 seconds. Let's wait for Edvald to come over the top, and I think even for him it's going to be hard to close a minute on the descent, despite the fact that it's long and technical. I'll keep an eye on the other screen and see what time it is when he comes through.
Well, it's 1 minute and 6 seconds so far, and Edvald has got his work cut out, not least in terms of trying to catch the guys who are now on the descent, but frankly looking over his shoulder and wondering about these guys. And here comes Colombian by the looks of things. This looks like Quintero going through now, better climber than Eddie Boss. I don't think we've actually missed Eddie Boss. I think he's still there. He is a big man, don't forget. He's got a chance later on. He's a great descender, but unfortunately, and there he goes now. So 1 minute and 39. Wow, that's a big gap to make up.
Yeah, he certainly faded over the last part of the climb there, which is not what I was expecting, to be perfectly honest. I thought that he'd keep an even pace all the way up, but just goes to show the speed of Arredondo at the front. He really put it into the other guys in the breakaway. Amazing job here by AG2R to do all of the work. VMO doing a fantastic job for his teammate Pozzovivo there behind him. Takes him over the top of the climb in a great position, and all the favourites still there.
Yeah, and only 19 seconds, Dan, separating the main pack, or the main contenders, I should say, from Edvald Bosenhagen, which doesn't bode well for Eddie Boss on Norway Day, unfortunately.
Well, you might find that that pack of favourites will take things slightly more cautiously on this descent. They don't want to lose out on potential overall victory just by pushing things too hard on these corners. It is technical, Carlton. We've mentioned it a few times. We drove it this morning. It's narrow. There's a few bits of gravel on the road. They've put some pieces on the side in case anyone goes off. Net catching. What did you call it?
Catch nets. Yeah, absolutely. You'll see them. They're blue. They've actually done a good job as well of positioning them out of the exit of the corner, exactly where a rider is likely to lose it, should they not have the skills. Let's hope that they all most certainly do. We'll catch up with the descent in a few moments' time, and it is very, very focused. In fact, the motorcycle is going to have its work cut out to actually just stay in touch with the riders. You can see the cars here just essentially filling the road. So our helicopter picks out those who are just starting to snake down the mountain. It is very pacey, and you have to have your wits about you, because it's not very forgiving, this road, due to the fact that it is so narrow, and the switchbacks are quite focused. Here we go, and a little bit of broken surface as well. We are with Arredondo. He is on the descent, and he is going for this. Problem for him is that the peaks at the end of the day, two of which he has to take, one leads straight into the other, are not, there's that catch netting I was talking about, they are not the biggest climbers test, unfortunately. And so Arredondo, I think, may well have his work cut out to win today, but he's got some skill, but descending doesn't seem to be the best of them. This is not the most fluid descent I'm watching right now, but it does come as a rude awakening, the narrow nature and indeed the width of the course here. There is the blue catch netting to help out anybody who gets it wrong. Let's see exactly where we are on our day today. Stage 8 of the Giro d'Italia. Destination Montecopiolo, and they're on the descent off the Carpegna, the favoured training ground of the late Pantani. 31.6 kilometres to go, and they have disappeared down. We thought this might be the case. They're in the woodland.
Yeah, a minute and 58 seconds, as you can see on your screen. Here we go, back with Arredondo. Predominantly the first part of this descent is on this small road, but eventually, change has come off.
Oh no, it has. Has he got it? Has he caught it back? Well, it does chatter the road just a little bit, and maybe that's not helped him. There's the catch netting that is been put here rather wisely. It is back on. That was a moment.
It certainly was, yeah.
It can jam in there, Dan, and it can get very skittly very quickly if you're unlucky.
Yeah, and it's something that we've seen before that's actually caused riders to not win a race that they looked dead set certain to do. In fact, David Miller, I think it happened to a slightly different occasion on a prologue with the Tour de France, which Bradley McGee won many years ago, but managed to get it back on by pushing the front mech back up and putting it back onto the chainring, and he'll be thankful that he didn't have to stop on the side of the road, because at the moment still looking pretty good for Arredondo. I didn't think it was when they came up the climb. The gap seemed to be coming down fairly quickly, but he's got enough left in his legs to keep that gap steady at just over 2 minutes by the top of the climb. And it won't be long now, Carlton, before he turns right, hits the big main road. Still technical and descending, but yeah, not as narrow as we're seeing at the moment.
Yes, it does widen out. The whistles are being blown rally style just to warn those further up the road. And here is his little transition. It widens, take it carefully, and now put the power down. Good boy. This is much wider. It's 2 vehicles wide, so you're going to get the riders will be able to get serviced as well. And guess what? Straight up they come. How are you doing? Do you want a drink? Yes, please. 30.1. One bidon goes. Another one gets taken back on board, and he'll have a big old chug of that right now. He hasn't really had much time, Dan, to take on fluids or nutrition because he's been rather busy.
Yeah, well, he would have done all of that during the stage when he was in the breakaway. He would have eaten and drunk plenty, I hope. There we can see the overall climb is standing. He must have taken a point on another climb throughout this race before, because it's 32 for going over the top there. You can see Perazzi, last year's winner, in second place. There are more points on offer coming up fairly soon. After he finishes this descent, he'll start the second category climb of the Villaggio del Lago. And for going over the second category climb, if he still remains in front, he'll have a total of 14 points there, which will put him up to 47. By no means over, of course, that classification. Massive climb to come over the next couple of weeks. And here we get our first shots of the chasing group behind, whittled down to around about 20 riders, still being led by Agi Dozera, AG2R. Micah in third position, Quintana right up there in fourth. No real attacks from any of the favourites on that climb itself, but I'm sure we're going to see some on the final climb up here to the finish.
Believe there are still some intermediate riders, by the way, between the peloton and Arredondo, who we're looking at right now. We told you that the some of the corners remain something of a test, and you can see some frost damage as well, so fracturing in the road. And I think that chatter that the rough surface can throw up was responsible for the disengagement of the chain, which thankfully Arredondo managed to put back in place. And indeed here are our intermediate riders who are on that climb on the wider section.
Well, this looks like Roland attacking from the group behind. They've just come out of that right-hand turn. AG2R had been doing all of the work there. I'm not sure whether he'd already gone on the descent or whether he's just made a little attack now. I didn't quite see what happened there, but Roland finds himself in between now Arredondo and the rest of the breakaway that's still up the front, and this group behind still being led by AG2R.
Yeah, they don't want to give Roland too much disrespect, to be honest. We were talking about him, saying not very long ago, incidentally, if you only just joined us, that this is a Roland kind of day. And he does pick his days to shine brightly. Trouble is, he's a bit of an on-off switch when it comes to his GC rides, but he does pick stages. And maybe this is a bit of a target. It looks like he's easing up ever so slightly as we speak, with 28.3 to go. I think he's probably thinking maybe I could do with some company here. Arredondo, incidentally, is just going for it at the moment. We have this descent on wider highway, as Dan was saying. It does throw you, though, on occasion, and we have some off-camber turns, which can really catch out the unwary. You better be have your wits about you.
Yeah, but we saw the other day, didn't we, Carlton, on that wet descent before the climb where Ulissi won the stage, Arredondo was actually on the front. It was a surprise to me. I don't actually know how good he is at descending, or didn't before that, never having ridden against him in a competitive race. But yeah, he went down that pretty confidently in the wet, and he doesn't seem to be holding back at all in the dry here either. So good riding by Arredondo. He's got 1 minute and 40 seconds, you can see, on Roland, who has around about 15 or 20 seconds on the chasing group. The peloton at the moment, keeping Evans safe, as they have done this entire Giro d'Italia very, very well so far. 1 minute 30 seconds to Roland is starting to come down second by second to the Frenchman from our man at the front, Arredondo. No word at the moment on the gap to Pirazzi, Kemener, Edvald Bosenhagen, etc.
No, because they're shrouded from our cameras, and there's a limited number of motorcycles allowed on the road. So I hope we've kept you in touch with the story so far. It will widen out, and indeed the trees will get less profusive. Is that a word? I guess I'll find out later when somebody writes and says no. Saying yes at the moment is Pierre Rolland, and you know, credit to him. We may well have not disrespected him, but certainly said he could have shone brighter on occasion. Well, he's shining brightly now, which is great. That's a beautiful shot, showing you what they're dealing with. We said it was a lovely part of the world to go cycling, and when you're on this kind of downhill, you've got these kind of skills, then it must feel like all your Christmases have come at once. Terrific piece of work, not least from the camera motorcycle, I've got to say. Opens up into a little escarpment, and you'll see some of the free climbing rocks available to those who are that way inclined up there on the skyline. This is that transition. This is quite a way down, to be honest, because this we saw Arredondo taking quite some time ago.
Yeah, well, I think that's not even the second group on the road.
No,
it's those are on our screens now. So that's Rubiano group, Colombian champion there, somewhere around about 5 minutes down. Not really much need to see them too much more on today's stage. We have got one rider in here from Neri Sotoli in the bright yellow in this group. It's around about 25 riders now in that group. It's swelled slightly on the descent.
There you go. That's he's giving the road a lot of respect. Not quite sure of how the curve is going to reveal itself, and so did the sensible thing of knocking back the speed just a little bit. Tells the camera bike that he's going to need all the road here to take the next corner. So if you wouldn't mind just backing off ever so slightly. The camera pulls alongside him right now as he hugs the wall. A little bit of green algae upon it. It's a very wet part of the world on occasion. Dries up beautifully in the summer. Right now, oh gosh, that was a bad place for the bike to actually stop there, unfortunately, but stop they did. Oh, we pulled away just as Roland looked like he may well have got that slightly wrong on the approach.
Well, he's certainly pushing things. He's made that attack, so of course he's got to descend very, very quickly in order to maximise the gap between himself and these riders behind, but also to try and close it to Arredondo in the front. He's taken around about 20 seconds out of the Colombian in the last number of kilometres since he made his attack. The peloton around about 2 minutes behind the Colombian as well, so yeah, 30 seconds not a great deal for Roland, but he's certainly pushing things more than that group of favourites.
Well, it was a select group of real strength that this man formed, or joined, I should say, Arredondo. He will have started as one of the principal favourites before we actually started this Giro d'Italia, but unfortunately his challenge cast asunder due to the crashes that he found himself behind and involved with. But he's on the bike and he's doing a fantastic job as we speak. Some of the banners, as you can see, Nibali saying hello. We've had plenty of acknowledgement of the past efforts of Pantani in this part of the world. It's his own training ground. Right now, Arredondo is bidding for glory, and he's going to have to do it on his own unless Pierre Roland manages to get over to him. That's 1 minute and 30. I believe there may well be some intermediate riders on the road as well. Edvald Bosenhagen, haven't heard much of him for a while. I don't think there's a camera on him just for the time being, but it will become clear once we get through this little bounce section.
Oh, what's happened here with Roland? It looks like a replay that we're just about to see. Hopefully no problems. Oh, it's what we saw before, wasn't it?
Here we are. This is where we thought he probably got it just a little bit wrong, and well, he made a decent job of it. Sorry to bounce that up then. Here we go. There is Cadel Evans. He's had a good day today, and I think the efforts of his team yet again have sort of neutralised the challenge of those around him. That is Pozzovivo, incidentally, from AG2 La Mondiale in the brown and white, along with Viamos, who's also going well, the Frenchman within that team. And there is Quintana. Villamont's incidentally 3 minutes and 28 down. He's a bit of a slow burner, and well, you never know. Something may well come of that. That's about Powell's from Omega Pharma that's just coming through past Basso, incidentally. And have we got Oran here? Yes, we have. Just sailing by Oran but just sailing by Basso as we speak. There we are. First chasing group has been acknowledged for us, and it's just sitting in front of Roland as we speak. He's looking at Kemener at the moment. Doesn't want to offer Kemener any assistance. Kemener doesn't have to do the work at the moment because Roland is here, and it looks like Roland has given a modest gap. We saw Kiki take a huge tumble earlier on today, incidentally, and I know a number of you have been worried about him. He's okay, but remarkably, almost miraculously okay, considering the hit he took. He actually slewed across the road. I'm still not sure what the problem was, whether it was a mech issue. I'm not quite sure. But he ended up going over some Armco and the bike getting flung into the air.
There we go. Look at the gap that he's getting on his board there. 1 minute and 4 seconds back to Pierre Rolland, but 2 minutes and 40 back to the main peloton, and that's quite a reasonable gap for somebody like Arredondo. If he's got enough left in his legs, he's a great climber. We've seen that already, and there is confirmation for you on your screens. 2 minutes and 40, the gap between this man and the group of favourites.
50 seconds, though, back to the those with strength in numbers. Well, diminishing numbers right now, and Pirazzi picks it up yet again, and it's Pierre Rolland who's taking along for the ride. So no wonder that Ed Barbosa-Hagen was looking into the eyes of Kemener like, come on, let's get back at it. But of course, Kemener is going to do nothing to challenge Pierre Rolland, his teammate, who is now just on the wheel of Pirazzi. Out front, it's Arredondo, and he's taking the shortest route through absolutely all of it. He's using the road well.
Yeah, he certainly is. He'll be very, very concentrated now. He'll be getting more and more information from his team car on the radio, and as I say that, they draw up alongside him, and they'll just remind him again what he's got to face over the final number of kilometres here. He'll know it anyway from looking in the book. They would have gone over it on the race radio for him as well with the team car, but he'll be extremely concentrated. This is his first ever Grand Tour, let's not forget. Supremely talented climber, but it would be phenomenal for him and for his team, of course, to get the stage win today. They came in with a few hopes for the overall, amongst them Kieselowski, who remains in that group of favourites behind the Croatian champion. Still 2 minutes and 30 seconds we're hearing between Arredondo and that group, and in fact it seems to be almost extending back to these two. In some ways that's not a surprise. When he put that attack in, he quickly distanced the Bardiani rider here, Stefano Pirazzi, and it's him doing the work on the front. But I've got a feeling Rolland must be just kind of biding his time at the moment, and just pacing things. And still, let's not forget, 15.5 kilometres to go, most of that of course being uphill.
1:14 is the gap. It was 55 seconds not long ago. I think that partially must be transponder issues, but take nothing away from Arredondo. He's capable of delivering this. It's a question of whether Pierre Rolland, for my money anyway, has got the strength to actually go for this right now. Looks like the challenge of Ed Bosenhagen has finally been found out on these peaks at the end of the day. But you never know when we get some of the flatter sections. Don't be surprised if he pops back up again. Meanwhile, AG2 a la Mondiale have done a fantastic team job today.
Yeah, they are. As I said, still 3 guys in front of their leader for the day and for the overall. Pozzovivo there, the number 1 on his back is the best of his team, or at least number 11. Yeah, 3 of them, I'd imagine it must be Dupont, Villamont's, who did a fantastic job on the previous climb. Not sure who the 3rd rider is that's doing the work on the front. There is a group which contains Scarponi, who is in trouble, I can tell you. He's not a part of the group of main GC favourites.
Not good news for Scarponi, I'm afraid. Started today 2 minutes and 28 down. He's going to ship a whole load of time right now. 14.8 kilometres only left of today. I'm surprised that there have been so many big gaps, actually, Dan. I know we had a big test up the Carpegna, but some riders who you'd expect maybe to offer a bit more today have failed to do so. Yeah, well, he was a part of the crash on the day where so many riders came down. He's managed to continue the race, but I imagine that must have knocked more of the stuffing out of him than perhaps we or even he expected, and he's obviously suffering for that today. Yeah, it's a real shame. At least the rain stayed away today, and you've been able to witness this beautiful countryside. There's the leader of the race, Arredondo. First chasing group, which is Pirazzi and Pierre Rolland. You have the peloton, and unfortunately for Scarponi, you have the also Rans on the day, and that's going to spin out into a moderately tragic result as far as the Giro d'Italia is concerned for him, and indeed his Astana team. 14.4 kilometres to go is all that is remaining of the 179 that we started today, and there's Edvald Bosenhagen, and he's got an anchor, I'm afraid, in the form of Kemener, who has no reason to push on. And Eddie Boss has gone wide of mouth. He's on the radio saying, could you prepare me some hot tea and honey, please? It's not going to be his day, I'm afraid. Dan, 14.3 kilometres to go. There we are. More tributes to the fallen Pantani. .2 kilometres to go. Arredondo is up the road. The first chasing group, it's Pirazzi and significantly Pierre Rolland. I've got a feeling that Rolland is going to have to ditch Pirazzi here and do this on his own, and it's you can see he's just starting to think about it and alter the pace ever so slightly. Pirazzi is a funny guy to have along round, as in funny peculiar. He's not going to offer you a great deal of help if it can suit himself, of course, but sometimes he just lets a few bomblets go off in the wrong place and gets it wrong strategy-wise. And AG2R Le Mondial's push is about to find Edvald Bosenhagen and Kemener, who I'm afraid the challenge for them is over. They go under the 15 banner. 1 kilometre and more up the road, 1,100 metres ahead is Arredondo, and I'm starting to believe, Dan, that he's going to deliver the victory.
It's looking better and better for Arredondo, but unfortunately for him, AG2R still have that strength in depth. 3 riders still remaining on the front, and I say it all the time, I say it on every stage, climbing and sprinting, but when it finally comes to the big favourites really making a push for the line, it's always incredible just how quickly that gap drops down. I'm not saying that Arredondo can't do it today, but you know, by the time the favourites get to this final kick up, the last few kilometres towards the line, if they do start to make their attacks and any of them are sustained, then that cap will come down very, very quickly indeed. And there's AG2R just catching the duo of Edvald Bosenhagen and Kemener, who did a great job for Roland a few moments ago. You can see this group is still around about 20 strong. Those that I've seen for sure in here so far, Aru and Landa from Astana. We've also got BMO from AG2R. A couple of other teammates I'd imagine must be Dupont. Pozzovivo, of course, as well is in that group. Pelizzotti and Rosa from Androni. We've also seen Kelderman from Belkin, Evans and Morabito from BMC, Basso from Cannondale. We've got Hagedal from Garmin Sharp. From Movistar we've got Quintana, Uran and Pools from Omega Pharma Quickstep. Finally we've got Sitsu from Team Skylon with Cataldo, Maika and Rogers, I believe, from Tinkoff Saxo, and Kieselowski from Trek, teammate of this man.
Arredondo's gone for it, and Pierre Rolland has decided to fry Pirazzi. He's kicked off, and he is determined to close the gap. Don't bet against Pierre Rolland at all. Rosa on the back of Michael Matthews, stage winner, of course, into Monte Cassino, but that is about it for him.
Not only is it short, it's also not particularly technical. So, I mean, we saw Pierre Rolland doing a great job around those corners on the previous descents, both the narrow one and the main road. He did take some time out of this man, but I don't think he's got the opportunity really to do that. And Arredondo of the two seems to be climbing almost better. There we go. There's the latest time gap to the peloton, 2 minutes. So it is starting to come down under the impetus of AG2R, who is still remaining on the front of the group. But, well, I think Arredondo will be starting to think that he's got a chance today. He's been out the front, though, for a long time now. He needs to have managed his fluid and fuel intake throughout this stage to make sure that he hasn't left it too late and that it runs out of energy towards the end.
For him, I guess, that he would have been able to stay with Pierre Rolland. Have been dashed. Roland's gone off, but the gap between Rolland and Arredondo is constantly fluctuating. It's sort of mid-50s of seconds at the moment, but Pirazzi is 1:35 down, and in fact this group are not that far away from Pirazzi, as you can see, well within sight. And in fact they're going to cross this KOM marker now at 1:46. So 7.8 kilometres to go, and he will be climbing again before you know it. That's Arredondo out front with Rolland trying to close the gap. It's at 52 according to the timers.
Well, BMC have got another rider up
They have.
here in this group now. We've already mentioned, of course, Evans, who obviously is there, and Morabito. Wouldn't be surprised if the other rider is Sammy Sanchez. Hard to tell from those overhead shots, but Evans will be pleased to have one more lieutenant there to keep him safe up towards the front.
Fabulous. He looks up to the heavens and he thinks, is it really me? Yes, my friend, it is. What we say today was difficult to call, and in fact we've had several predictions which are now lying shredded in the bin. It's about timing, getting it right at the right moment, and this man has got it right for the second time on this Giro d'Italia. What a day. It's going to take an awful long time for these guys to come home, and in fact the camera will dwell long, I am sure, before they are all home today, and they've got to regather themselves for the drag to Sestola tomorrow. Then they can have a rest day before we go sprinting, and then the climbs come back thick and quick. Goodness me, what a Giro this has turned out to be. Every single day has had its drama. Some good news, some bad, but every day has been absolutely fascinating. Well, here we go. At this point, it looked like it would be the Croatian Kizilowski that went for it. Ulissi was on his tail, though, and in fact, as he started to weave about the road, not Ulissi, you understand, it looked like he was thinking about how he was going to take it. Kizilowski at this point just pulling away slightly, but Ulissi then found another gear, it seemed, mentally apart from anything else. Round the outside he went, and from that moment it was his. Well, we said there were some protected riders. They've been busy protecting themselves within the pack. The GC contenders have been busy looking at each other and have forgotten about the passengers. Well, he got a ticket to ride, and he did, and he delivered. Ulissi taking the day for the second time on this Giro.
Come hai detto tu, un grandissimo, incredibile e tanto impietoso verso gli altri. Diego Ulissi ancora una volta ha messo il sigillo per la terza volta, tra l'altro in una tappa del Giro d'Italia, la seconda in questo 2014 a Stefano. Bravo Giuliano Arredondo che taglia il traguardo in questo istante. Arriva davanti a Defi, nella traguardo l'amico Giulio, arriva anche proprio quello della Movistar che guarda. Che spettacolo, quando il finale sembrava ormai disegnato.
Here's your stage results. Diego Ulissi delivers for Lampre once again. Kizilowski the nearest man to him, and you can't even see Roland on that list. Can you imagine that? He had a gap coming into the last couple of 100 metres. Heartbreak. Kelderman third on the day. Quintana and Evans and Uran, Pozzovivo locked together with Rafa Majka going into that young rider's jersey. Sunshine, thank heaven for that. The heavens, let's hope they stay closed. Sestola is our destination today, 172 kilometres in total. A profile that looks pretty much like yesterday, to be honest. One set for the breakaway riders just ahead of the second rest day of this Giro d'Italia. Look how busy it was right from the flag. Everyone wants a piece of this race, and frankly, you're running out of options if you're going for GC, so stage victories are what riders are thinking about. And the cobbles, well, on some of the narrow streets, maybe just hampering a few. So far, no injuries to report, but I can tell you that Kiki has indeed withdrawn from the race after vaulting the barriers yesterday. They were rolling through again and again, trying to establish a break, and in the end, we have got one, but it took a long time before the main contenders and their teams were indeed happy with who was up the road. And as you can see, it took a lot of settling time. I think we were at least half an hour of full-on racing, Dan. It almost felt like a sprint finish before the break established itself.
Even more than that, I think it was kilometre 49 before we got these riders up the road. So over an hour of flat-out attacking, all sorts of different combinations of riders going up the road, and it wasn't until, as I said, kilometre 49 before a group was allowed to go up the road. But
just briefly back to Quintana and his comments about Cadel Evans. I think if Cadel had actually sat up and had neutralised the race, then there would have been complaints from people not saying that, well, basically criticising riders for taking the racing out of a race. So damned if he did and damned if he didn't. And to my mind, Cadel Evans did the right thing. He'd already gone on the attack anyway. It wasn't that he suddenly threw the hammer down. He was at pace, so were many, and that's why we had the accident, apart from anything else, with a flash shower. So he just carried on doing what he was doing. And, you know, all credit to him. He's in pink, and it's for everyone else to catch him up. And whether Quintana likes the gap or not, he's got to live with it and do something about it. It's a question of when Movistar and Quintana will make their move.
Well, they've certainly been biding their time, haven't they? They did a good job of protecting Quintana yesterday. He put a kind of ominous couple of seconds into Evans just at the final point of yesterday's finish on the climb there. 2 seconds doesn't sound like much, but it's a little bit of a blow mentally to Evans that he conceded any time at all on a day where Quintana didn't really put in a fearsome attack at any point. But the race, as we've said so many times, it really stacks towards the final week, and they've been struggling to clear the snow from the Gavia and the Stelvio, which feature towards the end of this race. It's a stage that we missed out on last year, actually, due to snow. They actually cancelled the entire day, so the rider's got a third rest day. Hopefully it will be back in the race this year and they'll be able to race over it, but there are certainly walls of snow on either side on both those climbs up towards the top. They're doing a great job of clearing the actual road, and I think they're saying that unless there's a fresh fall of snow over the next 10 days or so, that we should be all right to go over that stage.
Marno sul Panaro. This is a national park. In fact, we've seen mountain badgers and chamois knocking around. There was a chamois. I don't know what the Italian name is. I'm giving you the French name. It's like a white squirrel being chased by a cat yesterday. And in fact, thankfully, we managed to avoid both of them, and I think we probably saved the mountain squirrel from the cat. So, in our headlights, the cat stopped and the squirrel legged it. One man has got to show some legwork. He's Ryder Hesjedal if he's going to close the gap. He's one of the newly bearded, as you can see, of which there are plenty at the moment. A lot of questions as to why this has suddenly become de rigueur. I think it's, well, why not, as opposed to just why. Maybe those who've always wanted one now feel comfortable doing it. Ryder Hesjedal does, but he's not very comfortable when it comes to the overall. I'm afraid he is 4 minutes and 30 down. Stranger things have happened, though, but he is, as a former winner, a marked man. People are very aware of his credentials. We've also got, don't forget, 2 individual time trials still to come, and, well, gaps can start to tumble, and he's no mean time trialer, Hesjedal.
No, well, he won his Giro d'Italia on the final time trial, although he did beat a non-specialist in the form of Rodriguez in order to get that. I believe Pinotti won that day, now retired and working with this BMC team as a coach in particular for the young riders. But I think Hesjedal is a good time trialist. I wouldn't necessarily put him above Cadel Evans, I don't think, but Quintana's certainly not an out-and-out time trial specialist, but he has won time trials in the past in World Tour races, Tour of the Basque Country, which he won overall last year. And I know he surprised a few people at the Tour of Britain last year. Back at home in the UK, there's a perception, I think, amongst many people that lightweight climbers, particularly from Colombia, are unable to do at all well in a time trial. But I know Quintana finished inside the top 15, I believe, and surprised a few domestic-based riders who thought they were just going to beat him by barely turning the pedals. Yeah,
and indeed relishing the fact that they could probably take on a major name and take a scalp, albeit a very small one. Yes, not something you'd want to hang on your spear as a trophy. 67.3 kilometres to go, 7 minutes and 39. And we just cut through the developed area, shall we say, in the Vales, but we are kicking up. This is the industrial heartland of Italy, don't forget. Modena's not that far away. Ferrari, of course, makes some very nice cars there. They also make some nice balsamic vinegar, incidentally. And we had a steak with balsamic gravy Second stake in a row for Dan, and the reason it was second stake in a row, he's had such a good stake the night before, he decided to do it all again, and it didn't quite live up to expectations. Bless him. I guess you could say exactly that for some of the riders out on the road. Who, for you, has been the big disappointment? I'm not just talking about crashes, I'm talking about just not doing it on this Giro.
I'm not sure if there's anyone that I could particularly pick out as being disappointing who hasn't been suffering from a crash. I mean, it's very easy to pick out the likes of Rodriguez, who's no longer in the race, and even Scarponi yesterday, who crashed a few days ago, suffering the effects, and all kind of hopes for him of the overall classification have gone out the window now, and he really needs to, pick himself up and try and go for stage wins. In fact, of course, he's got a big job to do in July, trying to help Vincenzo Nibali, his teammate, to win the Tour de France. He said he stalled out very early, Nibali, this year, saying that he wouldn't defend the Giro d'Italia title, and he would go full on for the Tour de France to try and beat Chris Froome, Contador, etc. In that race, and that's exactly what he's going to do. But he's going to want Scarponi motivated, fresh, and in good form at that race. So whether or not Scarponi will go home from here, I don't think he will do. He's an Italian who's done very well in this race before, and he won't want to go home without having done something at least. So I think we should see him in a breakaway further up the road. Where does he sit now overall, Carlton? He's a fair way down, isn't he? Yeah, 41st at 11 minutes and 38 seconds. So it might even be that he deliberately loses more time today in order to be allowed more leeway to go up the road, because he is a threat to the overall should he get 12 minutes of a gap. I mean, it's very unlikely that that will happen, but if he does lose another 5-10 minutes today deliberately by cruising in, then he's much more likely to be allowed up the road on another one of these days where a break's likely to make it to the line. And incidentally, talking about that, the way things are panning out today, the way that BMC are the only riders still working on the front of the bunch, creeping up towards 8 minutes, I think today we could see our winner come from this breakaway.
I think so, and we'll start speculating as to who that's likely to be. We've just seen Peter Wheeling from Orica Green Edge, and he's had himself some handy results over his career. As you see, there are some little areas where you can just put something back into your legs. Still waiting to get a positive ID on Dave Tanner of Belkin from the aerial shot there. I don't believe he's back within that group. 13.6. For now, our attention is being drawn to Julien Berard, who is a very, very powerful rider indeed. In fact, if he gets to the flatter section, Berard will certainly be one of those with some quicker legs that he can deliver later on. 3 minutes and 50, it's almost holding at that, and with only 13.4 kilometres to go, this bodes well. In 5 kilometres time they get to the steepest part, Dan. Just after they go through Sestola, they'll it's flat-ish through Sestola. It's declared our destination today, but it's actually onwards through town and upwards to the Passo del Lupo. And some of them are going to feel like they've really done a proper day's work today. There is a rest day tomorrow, so you can afford to just put a little bit onto the road today in terms of effort, because you have got that recovery day tomorrow, and then it's a sprinters day before we get to Savona, and indeed that stage 11 climbing day. Sestola, our destination today. There's the altitude for you. Maximum slope 13%. That's the worry.
And yeah, and as you rightly said, Carlton, as they come into Sestola, it does flatten off as they go through the town, quite narrow roads. Then they'll take a left-hand turn, and shortly after a right turn onto quite a small road, and that's where things really, really kick up. And any differences which are going to be made, I think, on today's stage will be done so there, either if it's from the breakaway or in the main group of riders that we see behind, still being led by Team BMC, of course, the 11s. Europcar very much up towards the front, as are, of course, Movistar as well. Meanwhile, these two at the head of the race, Malakani from Team Europcar and Peter Wiener there, you can see, having a quick look back to check on the gap back to the rest of that breakaway. Doing pretty well at the moment. 15 seconds, we understand, is the gap between these two and who is left from the rest of the breakaway. Tanner, we understand, is back there, so apologies for not getting the pictures of him being caught.
12.7 kilometres, I beg your pardon, is the gap. The crucial is indeed the distance remaining. Gosh, we're a couple of trips today, and apologies for that. This is the chasing group. 3 minutes and 46 and 12.6 kilometres to go. 3 minutes and 46 back to the pink jersey of Cadel Evans, and indeed Quintana is there, and all the other GC favourites. It was always billed as being one for the breakaway riders, and right now We're looking at Wiening and Malakani, who are up front. Tanner having been reabsorbed, we believe, back into the rest of the breakaway riders. So much has been going on, Dan, both front, middle and back of the race today. There's been some big losers, even on this terrain.
Yeah, it's been a day of constant changes, hasn't it? At the start, it looked like BMC weren't letting the break go away. It hovered at 6 minutes for a long time. Then it looked like they were. It went all the way up to almost 8 minutes. Then we had a brief stint from Garmin Sharp on the front, which brought it down a little bit. And then we've also seen, of course, BMC once again going very hard on the descent. So the whole day we've been wondering whether or not this breakaway had a chance of succeeding and taking the stage win. And at the moment, as I said before, it looks very much like it will be one of these riders who takes the stage win today. But the way they've been riding, you just never know. It only takes a big acceleration from one of the teams behind, and it can bring the gap down very quickly. But 12Ks to go, 3 minutes and 46. It looks, dare I say it, in the bag for one of the breakaway riders.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that absolutely suits the GC boys as well. They've got some very high mountains to do their work later on in this Giro d'Italia. Tomorrow is the second rest day, don't forget, so no racing tomorrow. Give you a chance to catch up with some of your highlights by your pictures provider. Providing the commentary today is myself, Carlton Kirby, and of course Daniel Lloyd. If you'd like to speak to us, then please feel free to do so on Twitter. It's at Carlton Kirby or Daniel Lloyd 1, DANIELLLOYD, and then the number 1. Carlton Kirby is just as it sounds. As it looks, it is going to be for the breakaway as they come through Sestola. Now, out of town, it's moderate for about half a kilometre, and then we're into the steepest part of the day. They'll have a chance to recover because the last, 4 kilometres to the line, even I could probably enjoy. Thing is, I haven't been busy out there all day. These guys certainly have, and it's been a lot of hard racing to get to this point. We've had inclement weather as well, let's not forget, that really have hampered many along the way. So grateful that we've got some sunshine today to illuminate the race. Who, however, though, will be in lights tonight, we don't know yet, but we think it's going to be from the breakaway group, and it certainly looks that way with 11.5 Ks to go, and no real attacks coming from the GC boys or their teams, just a proper steady pace being set as usual by BMC.
Yeah, BMC on the front at the moment with Ben Hermans. Just behind him is one of only 2 Americans in the race this year. That's Brent Bookwater just sitting up there. He was a little bit injured at the start of this race. Morabito, the star of yesterday from a domestique point of view, in 3rd, and then we've got Sammy Sanchez there in 4th. Evans, I think, just slipped back through the peloton a little bit. Just keep an eye on what's happening with the other favourites. Everything very much under control for that team, and they'll go into the rest day, it seems, with a decent gap on the overall classification. Meanwhile, up front, these two are still clear of the rest of the breakaway. Still 15 seconds the gap we're being given over race radio, and I think, you know, that steep section, Carlton, that they come to after the town of Sestola is really going to give us and them a good idea of who's got the legs to go today. Will these two stick together over those steep parts, or will one of them prove to be stronger and go on alone?
I guess we're going to find out. Berard, Barbin, Bono, Rodriguez, Duque and Van der Sande. There, Puccio, Monsalve and Vorganov in a secondary, well, actually within that grouping. Just so big was that break today that a number of different options. Right now, however, we have just got a couple of riders who've decided to go and have some fun with us today. Meanwhile, the pack are just holding steady,
wow,
as you can see. Wow, well, it looks like we now at least have those who are going to be going for it. As you can see, they're going to come through Sestola, so it's going to be potentially a quiet one, but don't, hold on to your hats. That Pozzovivo was trimmed off a deficit of 150, so he will trail by 1 minute. And 50 minus those 29 seconds. Oh, you'll forgive me. So a minute and 19-ish, a minute and 21. He will be in arrears. Peter Wiening is being interviewed at the moment. We'll sort the maths out in a moment, but let's have a listen. Oh, Daniel Lloyd will be down there to have a chat with him. The breakaway group did their stuff today, and indeed they delivered. There were 14 hopefuls, 2 managed to get to the line to sort it out, and Peter Wiening it was for Orica Green Edge again. I don't know. The team from Down Under, they have a very, very clever way of selecting their personnel to deliver fantastic results. Peter Weeding, the Dutchman, does it for the Aussie team. Average speed today, 38.8 kilometres per hour. There's Cadel Evans, just wrapping up the old neck. Not quite sure what the issue is. Maybe it's just getting a little bit cold today. Confirmation of your stage results. Peter Wening takes the day ahead of Malakani. Pozzovivo, crucially, look at that. Coming across the line, marked 42 seconds down on Wening, but crucially, in so doing, finishing with an advantage over the GC guys. Here we are. Well, sorry if my maths has defeated me today, but we'll have the GC for you in just a moment's time. But Pozzovivo are doing a great job. Likewise, Peter Wening. Chapeau to him. And he's being brought to our interview zone, and Dan Lloyd will be talking to him in a moment. This is how it went at the end. You've got to feel sorry for David Malakani. Of the two, perhaps you'd have bet on him. Dan Lloyd did exactly that. I went for Peter Wening. And Peter Wening did the track thing, did a fantastic job, and indeed when he went by in such a point that he could go to the narrowest line to the line, the shortest route home, and indeed he took it, and he took the victory after 4 hours, 25 minutes and 51 seconds. Wasn't a short day, was it? Because of the climbs that we had, similar profile to yesterday. But today we had a winner from the original breakaway, as predicted, and it was Peter Wening.